Immediately claiming central territory, this pawn prepares to support future piece development and control crucial squares. Opens up development possibilities while setting the stage for flexible pawn structures. Developing a knight so actively to f3, preparing castling, controls central squares and supports a potential e4 pawn push. Embracing the fianchetto, black prepares to control the long diagonal, potentially leading to dynamic counterplay. Building a solid pawn chain with d4, and c3 prepares a central pawn push while supporting a potential kingside fianchetto, aiming for harmonious piece development and control over key squares. Developing the bishop to its natural diagonal enhances piece coordination and prepares for potential queenside expansion. Unpinning the knight immediately develops another piece and pressures black's developing moves. Securing the monarch under a protective pawn shield, preparing to develop pieces actively and contest the center. Solidifying the center and preparing a kingside initiative, the knight finds a less explored path to support future pawn pushes. Instantly challenging the center, black seizes the initiative and prepares to develop the queenside. Solidifying the center, this pawn advance prepares to develop the bishop and contest the d-file, fostering a robust pawn structure for the middle game. Unifying your cavalry now, aiming to bolster the central pawn chain and prepare for potential queenside expansion. This maneuver aggressively contests the queenside, seeking to outflank black's pawn structure and potentially create an open file for the rook. Challenging white's queenside expansion, black immediately fights for queenside space and opens lines for potential counterplay. Propelling the pawn forward creates a powerful queenside blockade, aggressively seizing territory and initiating a positional squeeze. Securing the queenside flank this way obstructs white's expansion and prepares for a potential pawn break on the c-file. Relocating the bishop opens a diagonal for potential piece play and reinforces the pawn chain's forward momentum. Challenging white's central grip and opening lines on the queenside, this push aims to disrupt white's pawn chain and create counterplay. Opening that b-file creates dynamic possibilities for your rooks, forcing black to solidify their central pawn structure. Opening the b-file offers dynamic counterplay, challenging white's pawn chain and potentially activating the rook. Castling here shores up the king and readies the rook for central infiltration, a prudent defensive consolidation. Shaping the pawn structure initiates a fight for central space and creates dynamic imbalances. Pressuring the c-file with the rook and preparing a potential queen maneuver, this is a dynamic shift in white's pawn structure. The queen ventures forth, challenging the central pawn structure and probing for weaknesses. The rook's repositioning aims to contest black's queenside space, potentially creating targets or preparing a central thrust. This repositioning of the queen aims to centralize influence and potentially eye weaknesses on the queenside, even if it temporarily concedes the central d-file. Unlocking the queenside pawn's potential, this maneuver clears the way for a coordinated queenside advance. Challenging white's queenside control, this bishop relocation aims to disrupt white's queenside structure and potentially activate black's pieces along the dark squares. Striking at the lightly defended queenside, this action forces black to untangle their pieces. Repositioning the rook to *b8* prepares a central pawn push, aiming to disrupt white's queen and create a foothold on the queenside. Unleashing a powerful tactic, white aims to disrupt black's queenside structure, opening lines for further assault. Recapturing the rook frees the queen and prepares to contest the open b-file. Establishing a dominant open file, this recapture immediately threatens black's queen and forces a crucial decision. The queen retreats, potentially seeking a safer haven and preparing for a more active role on the queenside. Capturing the bishop nets material advantage, but opens a critical diagonal for black's queen. Suddenly, an unexpected rook sacrifice aims to dismantle white's queenside pawn structure and seize the open c-file. Striking at the doubled pawns, white initiates an exchange to disrupt black's central pawn structure and gain attacking impetus. Accepting the bishop forces a pawn structure that isolates your king's defense. Aggressively occupying the 7th rank now, white aims to restrict black's rook activity and potentially launch a central pawn push or further isolate that isolated knight. Capturing the pawn opens the c-file, potentially activating black's rook and creating endgame threats against white's queenside pawns. Opening the c-file now promises positional pressure and potential king safety issues for black. Centralizing that knight on b6 offers a crucial outpost, challenging white's control of the queenside and preparing for pawn advances. Shifting the king to a safer square from potential diagonal threats. The pawn's advance now creates significant long-term weaknesses, a curious gamble considering the opponent's central influence. Shifting the king toward the center prepares for a safer retreat from the dangerous queenside pawn advance. Solidifying the pawn structure aims to create a robust central shield for the king, preparing for potential piece development. King repositioning to centralize and support pawn advances, though it exposes itself to potential future attacks. Reclaiming the knight to a more active central square offers better support for the pawn majority. The king seeks a safer haven, abandoning the d3 square to escape immediate tactical threats. A bold knight jump, seeking central disruption but potentially exposing itself to counterattack. Shifting pressure to the vulnerable c7 square, preparing a potential queenside infiltration. Reclaiming the b-file with the rook aims to untangle black's pieces and pressure white's queenside pawn structure. A clever positional retreat, redeploying the knight to support a potential pawn push and prepare for future skirmishes. Securing the monarch's shelter from the encroaching knights offers a welcome respite. The knight maneuvers to a central outpost, eyeing squares and potentially disrupting black's pawn structure. Challenging the rook's dominion over the 4th rank, aiming to dislodge it and potentially activate the knight. Unveiling a forced king retreat and creating a passed pawn threat by targeting the knight. The king ventures out, aiming to join the fight but exposing itself to potential checks. Exchanging that knight significantly eases pressure, simplifying the position for a cleaner endgame. The king's central position now becomes a significant target for white's remaining pieces. Re-establishing knight dominance, this maneuver aims to exploit the pawn's isolation and prepare for a queenside pawn storm. The knight dances into a strong central outpost, aiming to disrupt white's pawn structure and restrict their pieces. Sacrificing the rook initiates a mating net with the knight, forcing a king escape and promising an advantageous endgame. The king boldly ventures into enemy territory, seeking active participation despite the exposed position. Unleashing a decisive pawn surge to pry open critical lines and expose the enemy king to immediate danger. Stepping into the knight's discovered attack zone abandons the king's safety and invites a swift tactical reckoning. This knight hop opens a fascinating tactical battle, forcing the black king into a perilous patrol.